Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com runs down the major markets. For the first time in weeks, the major stock exchanges did not set new highs. Ross gives us the story there on what happened with stocks, crude, the U.S. and Canadian dollars. He also has a special offer for our listeners. Do the planets have any influence on what happens with the markets? Ray Merriman, publisher of Merriman Market Analysts, tells us about his research into geocosmic influences on the stock markets, gold, silver, the U.S. dollar, Bitcoin, and even the job market. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. You can find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Good to be with you, Jim, and an eventful week for some of these markets.
Well, so often we say, oh, geez, another week, another record high on the stock markets. Not so much this week, right?
No, not at all. If we take a look at the broad indices, the S&P, you take a look at the Dow, the pretty choppy week. You know, a week ago, we sold off into the Friday, and then this week, it was just up and down every day, closing off the week pretty poorly. Broad indices pretty much across the board on the downside. And if we look at the breakdown of the sectors, I think I only saw out of 20 sectors that only one of them is green on the week. All the rest are starting to slide. And, you know, what time of year is it? It's September, and typically this is the time when you start to see the markets take care of themselves and have the decent correction. So the indices, a lot of volatility on Friday, especially because you had this option expiration, everything from the stock options to the indexes, everything quarterly figures there. So a lot of volatility, and be interesting to see next week. These markets are just on the edge of a cliff in terms of where the support is. And I think, this could be like 1987, where the portfolio insurance boys there on 16th of September back in 1987 didn't have all their portfolio insurance in place for Monday morning, and you had a pretty big crack. So we'll see how this one unfolds, but it's been a heavy couple of weeks here, and we're starting to see enough new lows that there's some momentum starting to build there.
What's going on with the U.S. dollar?
Good strength here. The dollar index, we've been looking at it as having based out, and the index is up around 93.25 on the U.S. dollar index. That puts it back around the highs that we saw in August, and also the ones that were in place back in April. There's a big double bottom over the span of about a year. And if it starts to break out through this 93.5 to 94 range, could gain some pretty good momentum. It's been a reasonable consolidation for the last 5-6 weeks in here, and the moving averages that we look at, like the 20-week, had become a very, very nice support for this last month and a half, starting to curl up underneath right now. Generally, when you see that, be like 2018, the turn off the bottom there. That was the type of thing that we saw before the next leg to the upside. So that's looking pretty good. And then for those of us who are north of the 49th parallel, The Canadian dollar this week is not doing very well at all, and that is not just because of the strength in the U.S. dollar. The fact is that the commodities, and if you take a look at the CRB index, Commodity Research Bureau, and you take a look at the oil markets, they've been steadily walking their way up for the last few weeks. Canadian dollar couldn't keep pace with it. And anytime you see a divergence like that, and this is really the third one since we rolled over off the May high in the Canadian dollar, but each one of the rallies that we've seen in the commodities has had to higher highs, has seen the Canadian dollar only have rallies back to lower highs. So the easiest action here for the Canadian would appear to be the downside. We're at round numbers 78 and a quarter, and I think you could be looking at first targets under 77 and potentially a few more cents below that, getting back to levels that we hadn't seen since maybe the 2019, 2020 era. So Canada's looking pretty weak. U.S. is looking reasonably strong right here.
What's going on with crude? We know all the hurricanes that have hit the Gulf Coast in the U.S. have shut down refineries, and some of those shutdowns have been longer than anticipated. Right, and with that, we saw that nice pop through. There was a pretty good resistance line at the $70 level. It popped through that as these production the curtailments have continued on. We got up to 72 and change this week, backed off a little bit right at the end of the week, but the action appears to be to the upside at this point. And everybody's concerned about fossil fuels, etc. But, you take a look around the world, places where these days where there's lack of wind or there's lack of sun, everybody's looking for the alternatives, back to natural gas and, other fossil fuels to get some heat. But, and not just heat. I mean, it's just energy to run things. So I wouldn't be at all surprised that this oil market's got more potential in it than the Green Society would anticipate. Also, uranium, is it still hot? Yeah, we've been bullish on uranium for quite a while now. The Sprott Physical Uranium Trust has been out there buying up the inventory, and so we've had the price rally from 30 up to 50 on the spot level, and that has really sparked a lot of the stocks. Now by the end of the week, most of them were starting to get pretty overbought. It's been an exceptionally good run. I would say that the poor stocks are up 50% from the August lows. The good ones are up 120 to 130%. And we are probably due for a pretty good correction again here. I think that any sort of 38 to 50% retracement from that August low in the stronger names would be a viable entry point. Looks very, very much like the early stages of the 2003 to 2007 run. You get a fair amount of volatility in the early stages, and then you start to stair-step your way up after that. So what I would consider this to be still early stages of the move. You look to buy the dips, and good, better, best. If you can get 50% corrections, that's probably a really good entry point. And Russ, before we go, you have a special for our listeners. Right. Well, this time of year, we end up with generally some pretty good opportunities in the marketplace. And our models are designed to find inflection points. We buy these oversold, what we call springboards in nicely developed uptrends. And then when the markets have a break, we end up with our capitulation models usually identifying some pretty important lows. And in any given year, we might have half a dozen of those opportunities that really jump out at us. And as we move from September through December,
that's when we get some of the best signals. We really like to buy things when they're down. Right now, there aren't those opportunities sitting out there, but I would think in the near future, we'll have some that really jump out as big opportunities. And so what we're doing at this point is offering 25% off the annual membership for new subscribers. And, we would hope that the next couple of months would really present us with the type of opportunities that would make this worthwhile.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Pleasure to be with you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. You can find him on Twitter at chartsbyross. Coming up, Ray Merriman next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision. Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ray Merriman, publisher of the Merriman Market Analyst on MMAcycles.com. Where are you speaking to us from today?
Well, today I'm in Harbor Springs, Michigan, which is upper state Michigan, where I'm writing my annual forecast book for 2022 that comes out on December 15th. So I'm up here writing.
Yeah, how long before the spring disappears from Harbor Spring, Michigan, and you have to squirrel back to Arizona?
Well, I'm going back to Arizona about 10 days. I don't think the springs are going to disappear here in Harbor Springs. There's a lot of water here. One of the few places you can get a lot of water.
And I think the people in Arizona would appreciate it if you could take some of that water back with you.
They would, although I've got to say the monsoon season was really, really good. The lakes have improved, the lake levels improved, the dams have improved. It was really a good summer for Arizona.
Now, Ray, of course, you've written several books correlating market cycles and planetary cycles. You can find some of the details about that on your website, MMAcycles.com. Can you tell us, first of all, about the market report?
Well, the MMA Cycles report started in late 82, after I published the first book I wrote on the gold book, Geocosmic Correlations of Gold Price Cycles. And that was the first book that actually did a quantitative study relating any market, any financial market, to something other than the moon. Because, the study of astrology or geocosmic, the moon is a small part, but the planets are very, very important. So I did a study on the planetary mechanics, the aspects they form to highs and lows in the gold prices. And so that started my newsletter, my monthly report in 1982, early 83, so it's been nearly 40 years now. And it quickly blossomed into including stock market and then treasuries. And now we include crude oil, grains, currencies, Bitcoin. And we have other reports now with other markets throughout the world, whether it's German markets, Swiss markets, Japanese markets, Chinese markets. We're all over the world with our analysis now in our report. In addition to that, Jim, I've also developed a daily report for active traders, a weekly report for somewhat active traders, not quite as active as the daily, of course. We have daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly reports that we publish. In addition to that, I've also started the Merriman Market Timing Academy, MMT, which is a 2-year program for those who are interested in learning the methodology I put together that combines market timing techniques like cycles, geocosmic, or astrology. And it combines it with trend analysis, technical analysis, chart patterns, and price objective theories. And we integrate all of that together to identify the time and the price where we're looking to buy any particular market.
When you did your first study in the correlation between the planetary movements and gold, were you surprised to find there was a correlation according to your research?
Well, in a way, yes, but also not, because The impetus to do it came from legendary cycles analyst Walter Bresser. He was my mentor in cycle studies, and he observed that whenever Mars changed directions in the heavens, gold made its yearly high or low. And he gave me 6 examples of that the last 6 times. And if you want to know, if I can find this rate, can you find other combinations of planetary cycles that correlate with cycles in gold? I don't know, but I'll be sure glad to try. So he gave me all his daily gold price charts to go back to the, 1974, maybe even 71, I forget now. And I did a study on every one of those and kept up the studies afterwards. And he proceeded to mentor me in cycle studies, and I drew the correlation between the different cycles that he discovered and that I later discovered and reversals in the gold market. And there were 17 of them that had quite a strong correlation. And I recorded that. He loved it. He sent the book to Financial News Network. They flew me into Los Angeles for an interview, and my subscriptions increased from 35 to 350 people in 1 week, and I had to quit my day job and become a market analyst full time.
Does it look like astrology has been playing a role in markets lately?
Well, yeah. If you look, we organize our thoughts, our reversal dates based on what we call 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star. And 3 stars are the most important. That's when the greatest cluster, the greatest gathering of planetary aspects take place, what we call direct and retrograde motions of planets. So when you get those time bands, you get reversals. Well, the biggest ones are called 3-star. And our last 3-star was August 20th to 23rd. Now, if you go back and look at the Asian markets of that time, you'll see that the Nikkei made its yearly low on August 20th. Now, it's what, a few weeks later, less than a month later, it's making its highest price in 31 years. Same thing with the Chinese stock market. It had a big decline until August 19th and 20th, and now it's making its highest price in 2 or 3 years. You can see that with crude oil. Crude oil made a big low then, and now it's, running back up again, about to make a multi-year high there too. So the geocosmic critical reversal date, based on astrology, based on classical astrology really, are excellent market timing tools, especially when they fall in the time band, when that market cycle is due. That's when they're most important. So that's what happened on August 20th, 23rd, big reverse. And you can look at the S&P and the NASDAQ. I mean, the rally to the all-time highs started from the low of August 19th, except in the Dow. The Dow was August 16th high. It dropped August 19th. It hasn't taken out that high. But the S&P and the NASDAQ have made new highs since August 19th. So, yeah, these are very important tools to use in market timing.
The last time you were on the show, you made a great call on the Dow. What is financial astrology seeing ahead for the Dow?
Well, we have an important Sun-Mars synodic cycle. That's where they come together as seen from the Earth, but you can't see it because the sun will block out Mars. But they're kind of together. If you had a telescope that could see through that, you see the sun and Mars. You see the sun, and behind it is Mars. It block out Mars. And within 3 weeks of that date, my studies have shown that long and intermediate term cycles end and begin 8 to 20% reversals. And that's like over 70% of the time. So that 3-week time period has begun now. It began last week, and it goes all the way till November 1st. So either we've begun an 8 to 20% decline that's going to end by November, or we're reversing right now, and we're going to go back and test these highs again before the end of November, and then make an 8 to 20% decline. So somewhere very soon, we're either in or going to be into time band when these studies indicate an 8 to 20% decline. I think the key we want to look at, Jim, is 34,500 in the Dow. If that breaks, then the decline is underway. And, an 8 to 20% decline, that would take you, I think, below 31,000, I'm guessing. I don't have that in front of me right now. But it's a pretty good decline. It's the biggest decline we've had. It'll be the biggest decline we had since this time last year. And you remember, last year, the stock markets made their all-time highs September 3rd. This year, the S&P made its all-time high September 3rd. And then they began decline. It was erratic. They started down, and then they tried to make a rally, and they continued down until October 30th. this seems like deja vu all over again from last year to me.
Does financial astrology foresee any market turning points ahead?
Yeah, the big one, as I just mentioned, October 7th and 8th is the Sun-Mars, but that's part of a gathering of several planetary positions that are important. And so we want to give it a 3-week orb, but the most intense time is the center of it, which would be actually the weekend of October 15th to 18th. That's our next 3-star critical reversal date. So the idea is any market that's making a new yearly high or a retest of the yearly high or making a new yearly low or retest of the yearly low is a candidate for this 8 to 20% reversal. So that's what we're looking for. If the Dow can start breaking 34,500, we're going to be looking for the 8 to 20% bottom to happen somewhere around October 15th to 18th, probably give or take a week. And then we're buyers.
Gold continues to be in a trading range. What do you see ahead for that precious metal?
Well, it's made a big correction today. It started a correction last week, and it's made a 50% correction out of that move up from the big double bottom that formed at 1677. You had a 1673 back on March 8th, I think it was, and on August 9th you got back down to 1677.90. So that's very important. That's the floor of unfortunately, a descending triangle, which I don't like descending triangles. They're bearish. However, the geocosmics aren't bearish, and nor are our cycles. To me, that was also a double bottom, and double bottoms can be bullish. So it's a fight between the chart pattern of a bearish triangle, descending triangle, with support at 1670, 1680, and bullish cycles, which says that double bottom in August was the end of a 31.33-month cycle. And if that's correct, this market should be up for at least 4 to 8 months. Should go back over 1900. And the key is, will it get over 1970? That's the key. If you get over 1970, then, you're looking at a retest of the all-time highs. But the time is running out because not only is it the 31.33-month cycle, but that's the last cycle of a greater 7.8-year cycle, which is the last phase of a greater 23.5-year cycle. So we're at the end. This gold market is very, very mature. And once this rally is over to the crest of the 31.33-month cycle, gold is going to lose 50 to 75% of its value. And so my view is that we're looking for this rally to continue into November and December. And if it can't get above 1970 by then I think it's time to fold it up, in my opinion, and start taking what you can, assuming you have profit, and looking at other markets, maybe Bitcoin or something. So I think gold has a chance of getting to 1900 to 1950. I don't know if it can get above 1970, but if it does, great. If it doesn't, I think it's setting up for big decline the next 1 to 3 years.
Silver also seems to be in a trading range. What do the planets tell you about that?
Well, it's very similar. Very similar to gold. You've got silver went down and hit an important trend line today. It went down to, 2250 or something. And its recent low was 2229. Before that, it's 2181. So you don't want to see silver breaking 2180. That won't look good. If gold and silver can stop this decline that's been going on this week, if it can stop it by Friday and no later than Monday, still looks good to me. And I don't know how high silver can get, because silver gets emotional. So if gold goes up to 1900 to 1970, silver could easily make a new yearly high or multi-year high. It can get above 30. So that's what I'm hopeful of, and the geocosmics support it. However, the chart pattern of these triangles and these base support areas of 2180 on silver and 1675 area on gold, they concern me. They got to hold. So I think they will hold. I think we'll go higher to the end of the year, but if they break, I have to change my outlook.
What do you see ahead for the U.S. dollar?
Well, there's a lot of mixed signals in the currencies, and that's a difficult market. On the one hand, we got the political cycle. We have a Democrat in the White House. When you have Democrats in the White House, the dollar tends to get strong. With Republicans, the dollar gets weak because Republicans want multinational corporations to do well, and they got to, bring the dollar down so they're competitive price-wise. That's my view on it. But the Democrats are a little bit different. The Democrats want they want people to be able to afford anything they want from other countries. So the dollar strong means we can buy foreign goods cheaper. In any event, the political cycle shows is bullish for the dollar. The rhythmic cycles of the market are unclear right now. I kind of think the euro, which is my main indicator for currencies, looks very good as long as it holds that low of August 19th again. August 19th and 20th, it was 116.64. That's an important low. It has to hold. If it does hold, I think you're going to see the euro get to 125 to 130. Maybe in the next 6 months. Maybe as gold gets to 1900 to 1970. It could happen by the end of the year. But if gold starts breaking 1670 and silver 2180 and the euro starts breaking 11660, then their cycles are over. The dominance of their cycles is more bearish. That becomes a problem. So right now I'm tentatively bullish, but I'm worried about the political cycle, which is strong for the U.S. dollar, and I'm a little concerned about the technical support levels holding here at 116.64 on the euro.
How are other currencies likely to react to the U.S. dollar?
Well, I don't follow too many others. I mean, basically the Swiss franc, which is going to go the same direction as the euro pretty much, and the dollar yen, the yen. The yen has seemed unusually strong, certainly compared to the euro and the Swiss franc. So they might be excited over there because they have a new prime minister who's going to bring in new policies that they feel will be good for their economy, their stock market, and hence their currency. As I mentioned before, the Japanese Nikkei has soared to its highest level in 31 years this week, when just 3 weeks ago it was making its yearly low. So it's been a tremendous turnaround since the prime minister decided he's going to resign and the new one's coming on. So I have to think that the dollar looks stronger against the euro and the Swiss franc. It doesn't look stronger, though, against the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen actually looks stronger. So you got to kind of figure a spread there to take on it. I know you're probably interested in the Canadian dollar, which I don't follow that closely, but I would say this, that Canada's currency is going to be probably very consistent with the cycle of the commodities. So if commodity prices go up, which means the U.S. dollar goes down, I would assume that's going to also be beneficial for the Canadian dollar.
We'll have more with Ray Merriman right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ray Merriman. Ray, could the bond market cause interest rates to spike?
Sure, but I think until January 2022, they won't. I think the Fed will not taper, or else it will not give up on its ZIRP policy, zero interest rate policies. I don't think they're going to do that before January because Jupiter enters Pisces the last week of December, and that makes a favorable aspect to the Federal Reserve Board chart, which is that when Jupiter makes favorable aspects, the Federal Reserve Board tends to be accommodative. We already saw this from May 13th to July 28th. It was a temporary period there when Jupiter went into Pisces and backed off. Everybody thought the Fed was going to announce they're going to start to tapering, except me. And the reason I didn't think they're going to taper is because Jupiter in Pisces is favorable to the Federal Reserve Board, which is accommodative. And sure enough, at that monthly testimony for Congress, Chairman Powell made it very clear they're going to stay with low interest rates. They're going to continue their QE programs until the indefinite future. Only recently has he said that we'll start to taper or consider tapering the bond purchases, maybe the end of the year, early next year. And that fits. I don't think he's going to do it before, I would say, before mid-December and probably not even before mid-January. After that, though, I think he will start tapering. I think T-notes will have a tumble, which means interest rates will go up.
What do you see ahead for crude?
Higher and higher into the first half of next year. My target is 90, but it can go higher. I don't see it topping out before the spring. I think crude oil is in the best of all worlds, both in terms of geocosmics, with Jupiter and Neptune, which rule crude oil, in Pisces, which rule crude oil, and they're coming together on April 12th. I just think that's pushing inflation up until that time. However, after that time, and maybe for the next couple of years, there could be problems, not only in crude oil, but inflation in general. I wouldn't be surprised if this rise in inflation peaks out by spring or summer of 2022 and slowly starts to stabilize and then starts drifting down back to deflation by the middle of the decade. That's going to be a problem.
Why is that a problem? So many people would like to pay less for things.
Well, I think deflation is a problem because if prices go down, then you're going to have profit problems with the corporation. You know, they've got people aren't going to buy them unless they bring their prices down. They bring their prices down, the profit margins go down. The profit margins go down, especially if taxes go up. Then you're going to start laying off people. People get laid off, they don't have money to purchase things, and you get depressions or recessions. That's the way the cycle goes.
What do you see ahead for grains?
I think the run on grains is over. I think the time band for the high was February through December. We're past the midpoint of that now. We got multi-year highs in those markets. And I mean, you're going to get rallies, but I don't think you're going to make new highs in the grain markets. I mean, you're going to get rallies right now. They're kind of in a rally at this point as we're talking. But I think the highs for the year are in. And I think on this rally, if you're long the grains, it's probably wise to capitalize your profits, monetize your profits, take them, or hedge them by selling against next year's crop.
What do you see ahead for Bitcoin?
Much like crude oil, I think Bitcoin's in another phase of a bullish cycle, a long-term cycle, bottom June 22nd, and I think it's going to go higher till the end of the year, first quarter of next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it can make a new high. If it can take out 65,000, which I think it can, I think you're going to get close to 100,000. However, sometime by, let's see, if we go October, if we look at October of 2022, give or take 4 months, I think by that time Bitcoin will have fallen 73 to 93% from whatever high it makes before that time. So bullish right now, but if you're looking longer term, I think it's a big, big plunge coming up in Bitcoin.
What is Bitcoin backed by?
Faith and a belief of the principles of Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is sudden changes and excitement. Taurus is financial, markets, money itself. And so there's this belief in the astrology community, which seems to be spilling over into the general world societies, that people think that currency values are going to change. The form of currency is going to change. The way that we exchange goods for services and the means we use to recognize that exchange is going to change more and more toward crypto. So people believe that. Central banks don't believe it, although some central banks are starting to develop a national currency based upon cryptos, like El Salvador. It was a disaster the way they launched it last week, but they did launch it, they did start it, and I think China's looking to do the same thing. The U.S. they're looking to do it eventually. Well, that's what's going to cause the crash, I think. Once these countries start making their currencies accessible through the crypto venue, then Bitcoin, unless it's going to be the stable benchmark for cryptocurrency prices, if it's not the stable benchmark and they start pulling away from the Bitcoin's going to suffer. But the fact that people are coming on to those, or countries coming on to those ideas of having a cryptocurrency as their national currency, I think that's very supportive for Bitcoin and other currencies, I think, till the end of the year.
How does the U.S. economic recovery look going forward?
Well, it doesn't look good to me. I mean, I'm not in favor of these economic policies that the White House and the Democratic Party, which is in total control right now, is suggesting. I mean, they think that, and they believe it, and I got to recognize that they believe what they believe, and that is that the more money you spend, the more it's going to go into the economy, and the more successful the economy is going to be. It's almost as if they can't or won't recognize that you got to pay back this debt. And the more the debt increases, the more your strain is going to be on your future generations. And I don't know how much longer we can kick that ball down the road. But I don't think this idea of wanting to raise taxes, wanting to penalize businesses, shake down businesses with this new idea of increasing regulations, hiring all these new regulators and IRS agents to go chase monies they think are out there that are being cheated from the government. I don't think that's the way to go to have a healthy economy. It's not that, you shouldn't have some of that. I mean, you should try to catch corruption and recover monies that are due to the government. There's nothing wrong with that. But to make the goal to go after the wealthy, the corporations, in a punitive way, and think that that's going to raise the amount of the coppers in your treasury, I think that's just wrong-headed thinking. I don't think that's going to be good long-term for the corporate world, for the business. I think there's been more and more time trying to appease regulators and fulfill compliance requirements than they are hiring people who are going to be productive. In fact, you'd be reticent to hire people because if they got to be tested every week for COVID, that's what they're planning on doing. Any company's got over 100 people have to be tested for COVID. That's extremely onerous and compliance-oriented, which is not helping productivity. And, we got a labor shortage. And you're not going to solve that labor shortage by hiring, the way to do it isn't by hiring more people who can handle government regulations and compliance. And unfortunately, that's what I see as the future direction this country is going to, and I don't think that bodes well for the economy long term.
Red tape of any kind is a job killer, isn't it?
Yeah, red tape and taxes are job killers. And that's what we're seeing develop here, and that's why the midterm elections next year are going to be so important here, and I think you're going to get another Tea Party revolt in the U.S.
Could Evergrande be the canary in the coal mine for China's economy?
Well, I don't know for sure. I can say maybe. I think there's a bigger problem with China, and that's their decaying infrastructure. It's very old. They don't have the right materials there, and they're decaying, and they don't have the skills or tools or even the monies yet, I don't think, to fix everything that's necessary to fix properly. Their infrastructure is decaying, it's collapsing, and they're poorly constructed, and I think that's going to be a bigger problem for them, and very costly problem, and I think that's something they've got to learn. They can print as much money as they want, but they got a debt problem too, just as Japan does, and they got a real bad infrastructure, probably worse than the United States. Until they solve that, there are problems lying ahead for them too.
Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, where supposedly you'll own nothing and be happy about it, is being pushed around the world. Can financial astrology see if this Great Reset will succeed or even take place?
Well, we got Neptune in Pisces, and Jupiter's about to go into Pisces, and Pisces is fantasy, okay? It's idealism. It's a wish for utopia, but it's not rational thinking. And so, yeah, they believe this. They believe it because they want it to be true, but, it's very, very hard for me as an analyst who studies cycles and sees these kinds of cycles going up and down throughout history to believe that this is really going to get off the ground. I will say this, that the policies of the U.S. government are probably going to lean a little more toward socialism, or as Bernie Sanders likes to say, socialist democracy. I can see more and more of that happening, but I just can't see the fiber of the United States culture and its history giving up everything that was built upon, which is basically hard work, saving, bringing up family, and, putting a great value, your financial security, your family security, your national security. And as long as we got rogues in the world who are developing terrorist ideas to attack countries who aren't going to support their national security, I don't think we're going to have that kind of I don't think it's going to be easy to get to that kind of future where you own nothing and be happy. I maybe it's my own personal belief system, probably is, but I see the conflict going on between now and 2031 to 2032. It's about a 10-year conflict, and I see it edging back and forth. Sometimes it's more conservative, sometimes it's more liberal, but in the balance of things, I think we do go a little bit more toward liberal and socialism during that period. And then we'll see what happens after 2031, 2032. I think it's going to change dramatically then, but I'm not sure which way.
Do you think U.S. society is so divided it could end up in a shooting dispute between certain groups?
It feels like it. It does feel like it. We'll probably see something where it really reaches a peak when Mars goes retrograde next fall, going into the elections. So Mars is war. It's bitter divisions between people. It's anger. It's frustration. And there's a lot of anger and frustration that's building up for several years, but especially 2020 and 2021. Those are like huge momentum cycles in terms of collective frustration, not just in the United States, but all over the world. But yes, living here in the United States, I do notice that to be I do know. Everybody in the United States knows that we got a problem because we can't come together. We're getting more and more divided. So I don't see it receding a whole lot, really, this decade. I wish I could. I mean, there'll be periods where it seems getting better, like maybe, as we go into spring of 2022, it might start to get better. But these are just minor cycles in the bigger cycle, and the bigger cycle is building up now. So a period actually just between about 2025 to 2032, that 7-year period, and it doesn't end really to 2031, 2032. Then something dramatically changes. I'm not sure what it is yet, but I'll be watching closely as we get closer and closer to it to get an idea of what that's about.
Your friend and friend of the show, Mark Leibovitz, commented when I said I'd be talking to you about markets and planetary movements. He mentioned to me that the sun just changed house. What exactly does that mean?
The sun just changed houses.
Yeah.
I wonder if he means Mars. Mars just changed signs, actually, just this week. Mars went from Virgo to Libra. Sun doesn't change signs until September 21st, next week. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if he misquoted himself, but I suspect he means Mars. And if he's talking about Mars entering Libra, well, you see, Mars in Libra is in its opposite sign. Mars rules Aries. Opposite Aries is Libra. So Mars wants to do his own thing. It's a fighter. It's a warrior. And Libra is a peacemaker. So you got the forces of peace conflicting with the forces of wanting action and aggression and willing to fight for what they believe is true. And they're trying to make, the Libra part's trying to make peace, but it can't. It's like Mars and Libra is like a marriage of quarrels. And so this is this is not the best time to get people together to come to a consensus. And this is going to last until the end of October. And that's part of this whole dramatic thing I talked about with the Sun, Mars in Libra and 8 to 20% moves in the Dow. It's a very volatile time for the markets. But when Mars goes into Scorpio, late October through December 13th, that's a very, very good time historically, at least 75%, a correlation to big rallies in the gold market. So that's one reason I'm thinking that gold's going to hold this 1670, 1680 area and make another attempt to get up there to 1920 to 1970 during that time. And we'll see if that happens to be true, but that's what the studies indicate to me right now.
Ray, how can people find out more about Merriman Market Analyst?
Well, then go to our website, www.mmacycles.com. And let me say this, too. If they want to keep up with our thoughts of the geocosmic climate that we're in from week to week, I do a weekly column on that. And I send it out to anybody who wants it. We have about, maybe 20,000 people throughout the world that get it. And it's free. Just go to our website and sign up for it. It says if you want to get this report for free, this free weekly analysis on geocosmics with the market, It doesn't give recommendations. It talks about what the planetary positions are suggesting for the next week, the next couple months. I would also say if they're interested in cycles themselves, okay? If they're interested in cycles themselves, we have the revised version, a new version of Merriman on Market Cycles of Basics coming out in 2 weeks. And this is the most comprehensive and really the most exciting book on cycles done in the last 50 years. There's over 175 market cycles that are identified in it in over 40 different markets. So this is something that's not available anywhere else and hasn't been available like this since Edward Dewey started the Foundational Study of Cycles. If you're interested in that book until September 23rd, which is next week, there's a 20% discount, pre-publication discount. Go to the website, look under Shop Now, and then go to Book, and then find out about that book and the special deal we have on it, and sign up for it by next week, and you'll get a 20% discount. And if you want an ebook of it without covering postage, that is available. That came out last week. So the ebook version is out. The printed version will be another 2 weeks.
Ray, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Thank you, Jim. Pleasure to talk with you. Take care.
My guest has been Ray Merriman, publisher of Merriman Market Analyst on MMAcycles.com. He was speaking to us from Harbor Springs, Michigan. Our conversation took place on Thursday, September 16th. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark and Ray Merriman, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Now, stand by for a company showcase update from American Manganese CEO and President Larry Reaugh. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Thank you, Jim.
Larry, American Manganese is always busy and putting out news releases. Did we have one this week?
Yes, we did. We were invited to present by two funds in the United States because that's going to be a major push for us. In I guess it would be 2011, we had, something like about close to 80% of our shareholders were U.S. Today, it's between 10 and 20%. And so we want to make our entrance into the U.S. and probably eventually look at listing on the NASDAQ board. So it's a good start for us. We have that prospectus on the shelf prospectus, and that has pretty much worked its way on our side through the whole system. And there should be announcements soon that part is complete, and then we'll see what is done about that in the next few weeks. So, no, it's looking really good. The H.C. Wainwright had their 23rd annual Global Investment Conference on September the 13th to the 15th. We participated in that. They're a very large investor in all kinds of projects, including green. And then the AGP Virtual Energy Conference will be on December the 31st, or 21st, sorry, Jim. There'll be more information about that. They are definitely in the closed loop lithium ion battery recycling area. And so it's really very interesting that we got invited to these, and I think that we'll see more of these in the future. And so we do our presentation. But in the meantime, the markets have been real crappy all week, and today we got specifically hit back down to 116. And, that's either a function of the market or a function helped by the predators. I don't know. And but there's been a lot of news out. And the big news is Siboney-Stillwater has bought 50% of Ioneer's Rhyolite Ridge lithium boron project in Nevada for just under $500 million. And so that's big news. And the reason why I say that is that actually Cametco worked on the solution for because it's quite a hard ore to work on that solution for close to a year and a half, and they solved it, and that allowed them to move ahead with the feasibility study. So hats off to Cametco on that, and now you know why I go with Cametco. They're a winning lab. They think out of the box, and they usually fill the plate that they say they're going to fill. So I think that's good news for our shareholders. And another big piece of news was that JB is going to be building a battery manufacturing plant. That fits closely with our plan on building a plant with Itovolt in Europe. And, so we came out with that 6 months ago. And JB is now building a plant that always helps the whole industry. And I wish them all the luck on it. So, just looking at the general market, the gold market's way down. Yesterday it took almost a $40 hit, and today it was down again. And the thing is that they keep saying that gold's a thing of the past, it's dead, it's blah blah blah. But I just want to remind everybody that it's a 5,000-year-old currency or longer, and which makes it more valuable than paper or bitcoins or anything that can be printed by man, because we see what's happened there since 1972. The debit in the United States and the rest of the world has been growing potentially, and now in the last year and a half is just going out of whack. That's inflationary. And inflation destroys currencies, and you just have to turn on the printing press to print more money, and that is diluting the value of the U.S. dollar. But with inflation combined, that puts gold front and center. And I would sooner put my if I was looking at a currency to be involved in, I would sooner be involved in gold than anything else. I'd like to have a nice physical collection of gold, mostly in coins, which are easy to move. I know I've moved them in bad markets before, sold out my collections in order to keep companies going, and so we can. I can always, I always count on gold, and I think that people are downplaying it. And but that's it costs so much money to get an ounce of gold out of the ground. For example, some mines develop less than a half a gram per ton of material. Half a gram. Think of that. You wouldn't even be able to spot it in a pile of a ton of material. So it's expensive to get out. It's hard to find, and it's going to remain a solid currency forever. And when the U.S. went off the gold standard in '72, it was a bad thing for the market. And I think that any currency out there will have to be on some kind of a gold standard. And instead of an ounce per ton backing up, say, a $1,000 bill, it will probably be more like, grams per ton to back up a $1,000 bill. And, so where you could turn it into the bank and supposedly you'd get your equivalent amount in gold because it's redeemable in gold. And I see that coming down the pike. So, we're exposed in that area as well as in the lithium battery area, which is the fastest expanding business that I know of. It's certainly, which is around the world, it's certainly growing by leaps and bounds. It's here to stay, and recycling will be here to stay. For example, they're building batteries out of cheaper materials like iron phosphate, and there's very little value to a recycler in those materials. The only value would be in the lithium, and so nobody's going to operate at a loss. These companies that are saving money on the front end will have to pay it out in the back end, because you can't just dump it in the dumps anymore. You can't just dump it in the smelters. They'll have to pony up and pay the recyclers a premium to do the recycling of that material. So I don't see that as a big concern. I've talked it over with Cometco. We've met with Cometco and talked it over with them. They feel that they can do iron phosphate, but the cost, they have no idea what the cost will be, because until you do the R&D, you just don't know it. And but we're trying to cover all bases, and the AMI technology is solid, so we can continue to operate as we are. The last two press releases pretty much wrapped up all the R&D that we're doing. We hope to be doing more R&D on the electroplating of manganese that went in the strategic stockpile, and we can, again, going back to iron phosphate, we'll try to get the squeal out from the pig. That's what the Chinese say, and so it's basically. I feel that this market correction is not a rout. You'll see certain areas of the market that are responding to things like uranium, oil, coal till recently, and there's other things that are happening in the market, and anybody involved in those areas are seeing profits, that's for sure. Any other bear market collapse that I saw didn't have those elements in it. So this is a whole different market. It's a whole much more difficult to read. I stand by, eventually when I retire, is selling enough to have the cash to do what I want to do and pay my bills and pay off my bills, better said. And then we can move on to hanging on to the rest of the portfolio, because I know that portfolio inside and out. I know our technology inside and out, and we're, as far as I can see, we're the leaders in that area. And I think that don't let them panic you, and don't forget to keep buying the dips, because you're seeing those every day. You'll see it dip down and then go back up. You'll see it dip down and stay down. You'll see it go up. It's a market that's being traded. And but I got high hopes, not just high hopes. I have expectations that this market will be over, and we'll be able to move on with our business and go from there.
Larry, if you were talking to one of those investment funds, how would you describe American Manganese to them?
Well, American Manganese is a critical metals company that has a huge manganese deposit in Arizona at Artillery Peak, and we developed a process for taking very low grades, 2 to 3%, and turning them into electrolytic manganese metal or electrolytic manganese dioxide. And I just have to say again, I said this a few times, that the dioxide is much cheaper to produce, because 60 or 40% of the dioxide is oxygen. So you only need 60% of the metal, which leaves a smaller footprint when you're mining it. And it only needs about 20% of the electroplating capabilities that you need for EMM, electrolytic manganese metal. And that was a problem that the U.S. had all through the First and Second World Wars. They tried electroplating, but everything that they got to that point had to be calcined, which is high heat. And seeing as there are deposits in Arizona, you don't want to lose that water, because we have a closed-loop solution for manganese. We have a closed-loop solution for the recycling of lithium-ion batteries. Now, we're traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We're traded on the QB board in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF. And we're traded in Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM. You can find everything there is to find about the company. If you really are a person that likes to do due diligence, you can find our financials, our press releases on the advancements of the projects, everything on our site at AmericanManganeseInc.com. And phone me at 778-574-4444.
And where can people email you?
LREAUGH@AMYMN.com.
Larry, thank you so much for the update.
Well, thank you, Jim.
I've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on September 17th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.